All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I have so much to share, and I feel like I don't even know where to start. If you're new, I'm so glad you're here. If you've been around, I would love to explain. I started Simply Obedient Birth podcast thinking that all I wanted to talk about and shout from the rooftops was the fact that you can birth differently, and I still feel passionate about it. But the Holy Spirit has done such a work in my heart. I attended a birth on June 1st, and I don't know, I feel like it was just really like a pivotal point in my life. It was just really challenging for me on my side. I just realized from that experience of being gone from my kids, and it was Sunday leading into a week of my husband working 60 hours, and the birth was pretty straightforward and simple and honestly short. Like, I wasn't there for very long. But I had brought my baby with me, and I also had, I was doing birth photos, and then I went back. I made chili for the birth to feed everyone there. I brought a ton of snacks. I brought my baby, I brought my camera, and then I didn't get home until like 12:30 in the morning, which it was like maybe 8 hours I was at the birth. It wasn't very long. And like I said, it's nothing about what happened there. But it was just kind of like recognizing like this on-call life and the leaving my home in order to work is not working. Because like I said, that next week my husband worked 60 hours, and I also went back and took newborn photos, and then I had to edit the birth and the newborn photos, and I have 3 young children. And it was just kind of like, I felt God kind of like softening my heart to the idea of like maybe not in this season. And so at the same time, don't really know when. I think it was like a week before that I had sold my first item online. I've been thinking about, because I love thrift shopping, I've been thinking about shifting my income source from strictly like photography and birth stuff, which is like what I had been doing for a couple years now, to like reselling. And I made my first sale, I think the week before that birth, and I've just been like picking stuff up off the curb or getting free things from family members or from friends. And it was like the same month that the birth happened that I like really hit reselling hard, because I was like, okay, well, I've been really wanting to like change my habits, and one of the things that I've been looking into was starting working out again, because I just feel like I crave the simple habits that used to help me so much. And part of being really disciplined in my, which I'm going to get into this, but part of the reason I'm shifting my podcast is because I just feel like what I was focusing on isn't what the Lord is calling me to focus on right now. Like, I think that I had been given a grace for a season to share about home birth, and I didn't get to make as many episodes as I would have liked to relating to birth stuff. I just feel like I've been so set free. Not that it was a bad thing that I was like stuck in, but just like the mindset behind all of it. Anyways, I have been wanting to potentially get a gym membership at a gym here in town that has childcare, not only for like the workout aspect, but just to have some help with my kids, because my husband started working a lot more than what he's used to, and I just really crave a break. But I don't want to have to like send my kids to daycare, and we've been looking into this gym. So I brought that up to him a couple weeks after the birth, and I was like, hey, what do you think of this? And I went to tour the gym, and it's a little expensive. And he was like, if you can make $500 this month, we can talk about it. And I was like in tears. I'm like, how am I supposed to make $500? I have 3 kids with me. I can't leave. Like, I just was like, I just need to do something, but I don't know what it's going to be. Well, I made $2,000 selling free things that I found on the side of the road, or like I said, things from my mother-in-law, from my mom. And so I just brought this back up to my husband a couple days ago, and I was like, so can we talk about the gym again? Because they have childcare that you can drop your kids off for up to 2 hours a day. and they don't change diapers, which is really important to me just because I have never trusted anyone to watch my children. And I will probably be sharing this part of my testimony later on, but when I was younger, I was abused in a daycare. And so especially sexual things, I just feel so called to protect my kids from. So I'm like, okay, they don't even change diapers. Like, I'm in the same building as them, and there's a coffee shop in the gym where I could just go and do like 2 hours of work. And so I'm like thinking through all of this, and I'm like, this could actually make us more money if I have more time to like set aside and like focus work time. So anyways, that's kind of like when I started feeling things shifting for me, was like after this birth and when I started reselling. And so I've been having a ton of fun on eBay, and I have kind of been thinking like maybe I should share some of this. So if you're interested in learning more or hearing more about my journey with reselling, I'm sure I will talk about it like organically on the podcast, but that's kind of like when I started feeling a shift. And after I added up how much I had made in the month of June, I started feeling really excited about so many things, because I feel like we've been feeling pretty stuck for a couple years as far as like paying off debt. And we were really in survival mode for a while when we had our 3 foster kids that we ended up getting guardianship of, but they went back to their dad almost a year ago. And then we had our baby in November. So it was like September, the 3 kids left. A couple months later, we had our 3rd child biologically. And now I feel like we're really finding our footing. My husband got his job. I'm feeling my passion shift. I'm figuring out what I can do to make income from home. And amongst all of this, I'm just feeling so drawn to the Lord. Like, I'm just feeling, for the last 7 days, I've read my Bible every single day. I'm in an online Bible study with some girls that I absolutely love. And I just feel so close to God right now. I feel like I'm hearing from him again. I feel hope-filled. Also, my husband and I started marriage counseling today, which is actually so fun. And I just feel like when I saw that I was actually bringing in an awesome income, and when I kind of saw like, oh, maybe I can get some help with my kids and maybe I can start taking care of myself again, I just felt like I need to go back to simple obedience. Because I made a list in my journal the other day of what are the things that I want to implement in this season. And it was like all the things that I used to do that are like so simple, like moving my body every day. The very first thing I wrote was daily time in the Word. Like every single morning, open your Bible and read, which I've been doing for a week now. And it's honestly been like life-changing. So encouraging, so uplifting, like everything that I know that reading the Bible should be and is, and I just wasn't doing for so long. I would read here and there, but I haven't had the daily discipline of like reading the Word first thing or after I change a couple diapers and I sit down with my coffee, like instead of scrolling, opening my devotional, opening my Bible, journaling. And so I put that on my list. I put moving my body and working out, eating healthier, getting back to budgeting, praying for Caleb specifically, like printing off prayers, praying those over him, praying for him like diligently, and figuring out like a structured work time for reselling stuff and then getting back to the podcast. Because every time that I feel like I hear either a sermon or some kind of motivational thing where it's like, what are you not doing that you know you need to be doing? Like, what has God called you to? I always come back to my podcast. And one of my biggest excuses has been that we don't sleep train our children, so I don't have time away from them. But it's currently 11:45 at night and I snuck down here to record because I drank coffee really late today. And I'm just like, I just need to do this intro podcast, just kind of sharing like what the Lord's been doing in my heart and what my vision is in the rebranding. So initially I had Simply Obedience as my podcast. I switched it to Simply Obedient Birth because I wanted to specifically focus on birth work and encouragement for moms who are pregnant. And now I'm kind of just like, I literally have experienced so much mindset shift, worldview changing. I can't even tell you in this last month of just feeling like things are shifting surrounding my view of birth. And I just feel like I was in, I don't know, such a like just severe like black and white mindset with birth where I do still have an opinion. I do not like the medical system. I was talking to a friend today via voice message, and we were talking about how, like, you can do everything you can to prepare yourself for the birth of your dreams, but ultimately, like, you have to surrender it to the Lord because His will prevail, and we are not in control of whatever happens to us and our babies. And I was talking about how before I had this mental shift where I just fully believe in the sovereignty of God over everyone's birth experiences, I used to, like, challenge or, like, kind of question that statement of like, do what you can but surrender the rest. And so it's like Informed Yet Surrendered is the title of this resource that my friend is making. It's like a journal for moms in their pregnancies. And I was telling her that like the first time I heard that, I was still in like the very black and white, like if you just don't go into the medical system, you'll be doing the right things by your children and you will just have the amazing birth that you want if you just stay home and avoid all medical care, which in my case, it went really well for me. And for some women, obviously, like they have awesome hospital births, and then there's like bad experiences in both too, right? So anyways, we were just discussing this today, and I was trying to explain to her how I've noticed such a shift in the last month since I attended the last birth I went to, where I just feel bored of birth stuff, which is like very interesting. Mind you, I've self-diagnosed myself with ADHD recently, and it's been very life-changing. I've been finding like a lot of compassion for myself currently and in the past, and I've also been implementing some coping skills. And I talked to our marriage counselor today about it, and I basically was like, I don't want to get on a medication, but I would really love it if you could give me this diagnosis so I don't have to sound so annoying and say like I've self-diagnosed myself with ADHD. But I think that that's a thing with ADHD where like you're hyper obsessed with something and then you just move on. So that kind of showed me like maybe I have ADHD when I like stopped wanting to hear birth stories, because I've listened to literally thousands of them in the last like 3 years. Actually, in the last 4 years, because I've been listening like since I was pregnant with my son, and he's 4. So anyways, yeah, I've just been like noticing, like the first thing I noticed was like I didn't care when I was listening to a birth story. I was like, who cares? And that was really weird. And I told my husband, I was like, I was listening to a birth story today on a Zoom call, and I literally was like, this is so boring. Like, I don't really want to hear it. So that was like my first sign. And then I noticed that I was having all these desires of like starting to take care of myself again. And I was feeling like my passion shifting, like back to like just encouraging people, telling them about Jesus and helping them implement like really healthy habits, which I just feel like I really loved doing in the past, but then it like shifted into birth work. And so based on just like where I was with my experiences with my 2 home births, and I think I was more balanced with my first home birth, but then when I like got into the free birth territory, I became very black and white in my thinking, and it's not a great place to be. Honestly, it felt very isolating. I felt crazy. So what was I saying? Yeah. And then the next thing that happened, and this was like the craziest one. I've had 2 women tell me about their unnecessary C-sections, but they were saying that they were like emergencies. And instead of feeling this righteous anger bubble up in me and feel like I have to tell them exactly what happened that sabotaged their birth and how they were made capable by God and how they didn't have to have a C-section and how they can just do something differently next time in order to avoid all of this trauma, none of that came up. And all I felt in my spirit was complete compassion for them. And I just said, like, with every fiber of my being believing it, I just told them, like, God was so sovereign over that for you. Because I totally believe that before the foundation of the earth, God has all of our stories written, and He knew exactly what was going to happen in their birth situations, and He allows really sucky things to happen, and He brings good from every single situation. And so I feel like I've just been in all of this unraveling, in all of this new worldview, in all of this just complete like hope that I'm feeling lately. I just feel like all I want to do is talk about Jesus, and all I want to do is encourage women to do the things that they know they should be doing, aka being simply obedient to the Lord. And so that's kind of where I am. and I felt obligated to get this recorded as soon as possible. I'm changing the way that I do my podcast. I used to involve my husband. I'm not involving him anymore because we just don't have the time for him to be editing my episodes and making them sound super professional. So right now he's asleep and the air is on, which he's not going to like. He might be able to hear that. I don't know. I do still have my professional microphone plugged in, and so hopefully it's working well. But I'm just going to be like messier but doing it instead of feeling like I have to be perfect and pushing it off, because part of my simple obedience is just recording this freaking podcast and posting it, because I just feel like he has so much to do and so many stories for me to share of my own testimony. And I also have testimonies of friends that I'm really excited to share about. So, ultimately, obedience isn't just for pregnancy and birth. It's the foundation for how we live as women, as moms, as daughters of God. And so what to expect now is more encouragement for womanhood, for women in motherhood, faith, health, identity, walking in truth. I might still have birth stories on the podcast, but it's not going to be my sole focus. And I just want to have really straightforward, bold, honest, authentic truth telling, rooted in love and a desire to glorify God. Like, that is my goal. And so when I die, I don't want there to be like this overarching banner of my life of like birth. Like, I just want it to be Jesus. So that is what I'm really looking forward to. And ultimately, obedience is not always easy, but it is simple. And like, you know, while listening to this, the things that you are 100% called to, and you just have to say yes. You don't have to have it all together. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you need to obey the Lord. So if your heart longs for simplicity, truth, honesty, and obedience, stick around. Subscribe, share, message me with topics that you would love for me to speak about. I already have a woman who's going to be coming on the podcast soon to share her story of her abortion. And so I am not shying away from the countercultural topics of the day, or the things that could maybe be seen as political, but are actually biblical. I'm not doing it. Like, I just feel so led to open up my mouth and speak truth. And I feel like another thing that I've really struggled with in the past is wanting to do something, or wanting to say something, or wanting to push something in order to make an income. And like, maybe because I'm selling it, or maybe because I'm going to benefit in some way. And it's really been eye-opening to recognize like my gut feelings of what I want to talk about based on what the benefit would be for me. And so, for example, like back when I was a Beachbody coach, if you were to come meet me at Texas Roadhouse while I was serving, or if you were one of my coworkers or my bosses, you would totally hear me talking about Beachbody way before you heard me talking about the Lord. And I'm not okay with that. I think that that's like one of the most harmful things about MLMs, which if you want me to talk about MLMs, I would love to do that, because I feel like I have so much to say, because for years that is how I made money. And as much as God used it, and as much as I learned and I grew, that's like one of the biggest things that I see that I'm not okay with as a Christian who's walked through it, is the fact of like, I meet someone and instead of thinking, do they know Jesus, and like, can I be a part of them becoming a disciple of the Lord, I'm thinking, I wonder if they'll sign up with me. Like, that's disgusting, and I absolutely hate it. And I just feel like that is like the biggest ick. So yeah, I love that with this podcast, I'm not doing it for any kind of incentive. I'm literally just doing it to obey the Lord and to figure out a way in my crazy life of having 3 kids, 4 and under. How can I encourage people from the 4 walls of my tiny room downstairs after my kids go to bed? What is the way that I'm supposed to be using my voice and encouraging and helping people realize, like, you know what you should be doing. Do the simple, not always easy, but the simple things that help you. And basically quit making excuses, because you never know how long you're going to be alive, and you never know when Jesus is coming back, and you never know when your obedience is going to be the key to someone else's breakthrough. So, yeah, I would love to share more. I'm so excited. I feel so hope-filled, and just, like I said, just like pumped for the season that I'm in. And I feel like so many things are shifting for Caleb and I and for our family, and just feeling like a lot of the things that I used to desire, whether that be like bringing in an income while still being home, paying off debt, taking care of myself physically, figuring out budgeting stuff. I feel like so many things that went on the back burner that I also hear from other moms that they're struggling with. I'm like starting to feel like things are moving. And so I'm like, okay, I would love to just take the hand of every single woman and be like, come with me while we figure this out. So I also feel like I've just been having like a lot of inspiration of like podcast episodes that I want to do. I'm hoping to just batch some content and post multiple of them for my first episode, because I don't just want it to be like I'm unrebranding and then not giving you guys anything else. So I think I'm going to stop recording this and then I'm just going to like go right into my second episode. But again, please share and subscribe and leave a comment of anything that you would love for me to speak about. Or if you have any questions about anything that I've talked about on the podcast, I'm really, really excited. And I feel like living set apart, rejecting fear, questioning the culture, having confidence as a wife and a mom and a mother and a daughter of God is something that like almost everyone that I know would love to experience. And hopefully this podcast can be something that you turn on when you're needing a little dopamine boost, and maybe when you're doing chores or housework or just feeling like you need some encouragement to do the next right thing with excellence for the glory of God. And so, yeah, thank you so much for listening. Super excited. And I have tried to do this podcast. I've launched it twice. This is my third time. I am not giving up, and I'm just trying to kick the devil in the teeth while also figuring out what the heck this looks like. So thanks for sticking around. Super excited to share more with you guys, and we will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.